What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler and can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Monday, May 18th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league, kicking things off with the bad news as starting pitcher Kris Bubic was placed on the 15-day IL with elbow soreness. Let's hope it's a short stay for Bubic and that the soreness is an explanation for his lack of fastball command and changeup feel during this season, as Bubic has not been quite as good as he was in the first half of last year. Stephen Kolek will stick in the rotation for a little while longer while Bubic is recovering from the injury, and we could see Luinder Avila, Mason Black, or Mitch Spence make a spot start while Bubic is out. Relief pitcher Eli Morgan was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move. Next, relief pitcher Cole Sulser was placed on the 15-day IL with a lower back strain. He's actually been pitching a lot of high leverage innings for the Rays, so we'll see Garrett Clevenger likely get the majority of those moving forward as the club's top setup option. To closer Brian Baker, relief pitcher Chase Solsky was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move. Next, shortstop Corey Seager was placed on the 10-day IL with lower back inflammation. Seager visited a back specialist last week and was likely recommended some time off, so the Rangers will be without Seager for about 10 days. Ezekiel Duran was already filling in for the injured Josh Smith at second base, but he will now shift to being the everyday shortstop, while Justin Foscue takes over at the keystone position for the Rangers. Outfielder Michael Hellman was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move. Next, second baseman Jose Altuve was placed on the 10-day IL with a grade 2 oblique strain. That's a pretty significant strain for Altuve, and obliques are already difficult for baseball players to recover from because of how much they use rotation in the game. Altuve is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with the grade 2 oblique strain, so the Astros will be without their everyday second baseman for a month and a half at the most, or probably in general, around 1.5 months. So in the meantime, with Altuve out, Braden Shoemake will platoon at second base with Nick Allen, vacating shortstop for the return of Jeremy Pena, who was activated from the 10-day IL in a corresponding move after missing more than a month with a hamstring strain, and Pena will return to being the Astros' everyday shortstop and leadoff hitter. Next, outfielder Jordan Beck was placed on the 10-day IL with a hamstring strain. The timeline for Beck's return is unclear, but he was on the short side of an outfield platoon for the Rockies before the injury, so look for Jake McCarthy and Brenton Doyle to see additional playing time in the outfield for the Rockies. Catcher Braxton Fulford was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move. And lastly, third baseman Kyle Farmer was placed on the 10-day IL with a forearm strain. The Braves are unlikely to rush Farmer back, given that they have a fully healthy infield. Farmer was a little bit redundant, but the corresponding move is very significant for the club, as outfielder Ronald Acuna Jr. was activated from the 10-day IL after missing a couple of weeks with a hamstring strain. Acuna will return to being the Braves' everyday right fielder and leadoff hitter. In terms of transactions, starting pitcher Elmer Rodriguez was optioned to the minors. He made a spot start with Max Fried on the IL, but with Garrett Cole possibly returning this weekend, the Yankees have enough starters to survive until then. So Rodriguez will make his way back to the minors, and relief pitcher Giovanni Cruz was selected from the minors in a corresponding move. Next, Patrick Wisdom was activated from the 10-day IL after missing a month with an oblique strain. Wisdom will see time at DH, first base, and third base versus left-handed pitchers for the Mariners. Third baseman Leo Rivas was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move, with Colt Emerson taking over the majority of playing time at third base. And lastly, second baseman Jackson Holliday was activated from the 10-day IL after missing the entire season thus far after undergoing surgery to repair a fractured hamate bone. Holliday did not start versus a left-handed pitcher in his return to the roster, so there's a chance that he platoons with Jeremiah Jackson for a Jackson second base platoon for the Orioles. I think the Orioles would be very foolish to limit not only Holliday's impact to the roster, but also his development versus southpaws. He's still very young. You want to make sure he's getting those chances to improve against left-handed hitters. Holliday is a guy that they're going to want to succeed for a long time into the future, and to limit him against the pitchers in which you would expect him to struggle and not get that chance to develop could be really detrimental for Holiday and thus the Orioles' future. Catcher Maverick Handley was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. And in terms of news, starting pitcher Zach Thornton is expected to have his contract selected from the minors tomorrow to make his MLB debut in our nation's capital. Thornton is the Mets' number 13 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline, and is a command-focused left-handed pitcher. He's pitched to a 3.16 ERA in 7 starts between AA and AAA this year. Not somebody to go out to the wire and grab, but still hoping to see Thornton have success for the Mets. Next, outfielder Dylan Cruz is expected to be recalled from the minors. He missed the opening day roster after struggling mightily in the spring and got off to a slow start at AAA, but got back on track after hitting his first homer after a week of struggles. Since then, Cruz has batted .275 with 5 homers, 5 steals, and a 114 WRC+. The 2023 second overall pick isn't a must roster in standard leagues, as he's proven to be a below league average bat with power and speed potential, but he should see everyday playing time in center field and is definitely worth the shot in deeper leagues. That's Dylan Cruz. Third baseman Brady House is expected to be optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. Pretty surprising, as he's been their 3-hole hitter all year, but with House gone, that likely vacates the hot corner for Jose Tena. Next, relief pitcher Nate Pearson, who is expected to be activated yesterday, is now expected to be activated from the 15-day IL today. He's been out since February with elbow discomfort and will be a low leverage reliever for the Astros. And outfielder Jake Myers was in that same boat, thought he was going to be there yesterday, but he will be activated from the 10-day IL today after missing over a month with an oblique strain. Myers should reclaim center field duties for the Astros, which would force Bryce Matthews to the short side of a second base platoon while seeing some time in the outfield versus left-handed pitchers. Speaking of left-handed pitchers, starting pitcher Steven Matz is expected to be activated from the 15-day IL tomorrow to start versus the Orioles. Matz has been out for a couple of weeks with elbow inflammation. Starting pitcher Tarek Skubal is already throwing off a mound for the second time since undergoing arthroscopic elbow surgery. Maybe all the reports were right about Skubal's super advanced timeline and that this new arthroscopic surgery he underwent is actually a big game changer when it comes to removing loose bodies from a pitcher's elbow, and he returns in just a couple of months. Starting pitcher Blake Snell had the same surgery. He is removing loose bodies from his elbow, and he has opted to go the Skubal route and get that brand new surgery. So that could mean Blake Snell could be back in just 2 months. And lastly, catcher Kyle Teel, who's been out all season with a strained hamstring, has been diagnosed with a sprained LCL, which will require 3 to 6 weeks of rest and rehab before he can return to play. So really tough blow for Teel, who's had a really tough time staying healthy. Now we can take a look at our notable performances from Monday, a day in which we had just 14 games on the slate. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with first baseman Josh Bell, who helped the Twins to win against the Astros, going 3 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 home runs, and 4 runs batted in. He's up to 5 homers on the year now. The first one went 429 feet at 112 miles per hour to set a new season high max exit velocity. The second one went 381 feet at 104 miles per hour. Bell has quietly been a league average hitter over the last few years as he's sort of faded into standard league irrelevancy. He somehow keeps finding everyday roles, though, and hitting at a 20-homer pace, making him very viable in deep leagues. Bell's in the midst of his worst offensive campaign this year, though, as he's striking out more than ever and hitting more fly balls than ever and pulling the ball more than ever. Is Bell just selling out for power, or is this age-related regression catching up to him at 33 years old? His StatCast metrics and this multi-homer game suggest Bell's just been unlucky this year, and we'll start seeing more balls flying over the wall in the coming weeks. Lastly, second baseman Justin Foscue did all he could, but the Rangers lost in Colorado. He went 3 for 3 with a run, 2 doubles, a home run, 3 RBIs, and a walk for good measure. It was his second homer of the year, and it traveled 425 feet at 104 miles per hour. With Corey Seager on the IL and Ezekiel Duran covering shortstop, Foscue is getting everyday playing time at second base. The 2020 14th overall pick and former top Rangers prospect never quite parlayed his pedigree into big league success, but Foscue's never gotten an extended look, combining for just 19 games across the past 2 years in the majors. Now 27 years old, can Foscue finally hit enough to force the Rangers to keep him in the lineup? In a small 10-game sample, Foscue has a 17% barrel rate and 61% hard hit rate. But I don't think we can buy into those numbers because of the small sample size, as he rocks a career 107 mile per hour max exit velocity and averages less than 70 miles per hour in the bat speed department, suggesting he doesn't have much power. Foscue's more of an advanced hitter with great plate discipline. He walks a lot. He doesn't strike out. He's more that than someone who's going to bat 300 or hit for a lot of power. And I think that means he's not worth the time in fantasy outside of deep points leagues where you're getting minus points for strikeouts, you're getting points for walks, and that will be the case until Foscue shows something completely different. But if you'd like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Monday, check out the Daily Batters Box article over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Tatsuya Imai, who did all he could, but the Astros lost in Minnesota. He tossed 4 2/3 innings, allowing 5 hits and 3 earned runs, walking nobody while striking out 5. He induced 19 whiffs with 38% CSW across 74 pitches, and he earned the golden goal, leading baseball with those 19 whiffs and earning the King Cole by leading baseball with that 38% CSW. Imai's been very weird this year with a unique arsenal, early struggles, an IL stint, and further struggles sparked by a surprised pitch mix change. He debuted a new sinker last time, but returned to throwing 4-seamers here, and it was great to see Imai sitting a tick up with those fastballs, and it led to this exceptional game here in the underlying stats department. But he paired his 4-seamers with his unique backward slider with arm side break and then threw nothing else. The slider dominated with 15 whiffs and 46% CSW, while the 4-seamer lived in the zone at 96 miles per hour. However, with just 2 pitches, he was super predictable, leading to a pair of homers by the aforementioned Josh Bell that accounted for all 3 runs against him. This would have looked pretty good had the Astros not pulled him at just 74 pitches, and there's certainly potential in Imai's arm, especially with the improved slider command that we saw in this one, leading to the boatload of whiffs and the fastball velocity that allowed him to live in the zone. But Imai needs to throw more splitters, even if just to give batters a different look. It doesn't have to be a great pitch. He just can't be a 2-pitch pitcher, and surviving those 2 pitchers are just not good enough. He's a cherry bomb, as we don't know if he's going to blow up or dominate in each start, and we haven't seen much of the latter. But I wouldn't be too surprised to see Imai dominate in Texas next after finding so many whiffs in this one. Lastly, we have JT Ginn, who helped the A's to win in Anaheim. He tossed 8 innings, allowing 2 hits and 2 earned runs, walking 1 while striking out 10. He induced 14 whiffs with 27% CSW across 105 pitches. Ginn was throwing a no-hitter entering the 9th inning, allowed a leadoff single, then served up a walk-off 2-run homer. The roller coaster of emotions must have been incredibly jarring for Ginn. I don't know why they didn't pull him after that single. I don't know what they thought was going to happen, especially in a 1-run game. You got a runner on, you got to take Ginn out. He was over 100 pitches at that point. Not the best management there. But Ginn had great command of his sinkers on the edges of the zone in this one, and he dominated with sliders, returning 6 strikeouts on them. But to take a no-hitter this far, you have to have a lot of batted ball luck, and Ginn went 14 for 16 on outs on balls in play. Despite not being the heavy ground ball pitcher he usually is, he did induce weak contact on 69% of batted balls, but it's hard to know if that's a sustainable skill or just a result of good locations early on in the season. While Ginn may not have ace potential, we can't discredit the great performance, nor his 1.23 ERA and 26% strikeout rate across his last 3 starts. Now that he's really settled in as a starter, we have to keep rolling with Ginn in San Diego next, but he'll have a really real test of his standard league viability versus the Yankees afterwards. I'm rooting for the A's to find their ace of the future. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Monday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Yohan Duran recorded his 8th save with a perfect 9th. David Bednar worked around a run for his 11th save. Aroldis Chapman also recorded his 11th save with a perfect 9th. Taylor Rogers recorded the final 2 outs of the game after Yoendrys Gomez struggled to open the inning. Taylor Rogers recorded his first save by doing so. Juan Mejia pitched a scoreless ninth for his third save. Victor Vodnik allowed 3 runs without recording an out in the 8th. And I think I'd favor Mejia or even Antonio Senzatella if you're super desperate for saves and looking in that Rockies bullpen. And lastly, Mason Miller recorded his MLB leading 15th save with a hitless ninth. And in terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, Graham Ashcraft pitched a clean 8th, but was stretched to the 9th inning where he allowed a single, got 2 outs, then served up a go-ahead 2-run homer to take his first loss. Nobody has stepped up to take the Reds' closer role with Emilio Pagan on the IL, and it's getting hard to continue vouching for Ashcraft. Gus Varland pitched a clean 10th and allowed the zombie runner to score in the 11th. The Nationals would go on to lose by 9 runs in 12 innings. Pretty spectacular score there. Ryan Zefferjon allowed a go-ahead run pitching the 9th in a tie game. Chase Silseth finished the inning that Zefferjon started and earned his first win when the Angels walked it off. And lastly, Andres Munoz pitched a perfect 9th with a 5-run lead after the Mariners tacked on 3 insurance runs in the 8th to ruin his save opportunity. But if you'd like more information on relief pitchers, check out Rick Graham's daily articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before I look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Tuesday, May 19th, a day in which we'll have a full slate of 15 games. My matchup of the day is Chase Burns versus Jesus Luzardo. We could see a ton of whiffs and strikeouts in this one, as both of these guys have the potential to dominate any lineup they face. In terms of probable starters, we've got 6 guys in the auto starts tier, including both Burns and Luzardo. We've also got Jacob Mizorowski on the north side of Chicago, Nolan McLean in our nation's capital, Parker Messick in Detroit, and Dylan Cease in the Bronx. Our probably starts tier has 10 guys, and our questionable starts tier has 6, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Zebby Matthews versus the Astros. That's right. Zebby Matthews was great in his season debut. I'm not totally sold on it. His stuff looked much worse. The velocity was down, but he pitched very well. So hopefully that can continue here in his second start of the season. I'd also keep an eye out for Matthew Liberatore versus the Pirates. He's looked a little better across his past couple of starts. He's not somebody with a lot of ceiling here. He's not going to get you a lot of strikeouts or pitch a complete game shutout or anything, but there's certainly the possibility of Liberatore finding some success against the interdivision Pirates. If you're looking to use a pitcher that's going to have an opener, so you'll have an increased chance at a win, or you avoid using a start, we've got Luinder Avila versus the Red Sox and Tanner Gordon versus the Rangers. Both of these guys would be in the do not starts tier. In terms of hitter suggestions, I realized while setting up for this podcast that yesterday I suggested hitters that were batting today. So we'll have those same list of hitters, but don't know what happened there. I guess I got to do this a little bit earlier in the night. Let's start with those hitter suggestions. Ryan McMahon is not a great hitter, but he is against Dylan Cease, and he'll be in Yankee Stadium. McMahon has batted .417 with a homer and 1179 OPS in 12 at-bats against Cease. I'd also target Twins hitters versus Lance McCullers Jr. in Target Field because McCullers has a 6.86 ERA on the season. I'd also look at Nolan Gorman versus Mitch Keller in Busch Stadium. Gorman has batted .240 with a trio of homers and a .961 OPS in 25 at-bats against Mitch Keller. And lastly, I target Rangers and Rockies hitters in Coors Field. We'll see Kumar Rocker square off against Tanner Gordon and an opener. And now we can close things out with our relievers to watch. Aroldis Chapman has pitched in 3 of the past 4 days. So if the Red Sox elect to give him a day off, Garrett Whitlock would be the temporary closer for the Red Sox. And on the other side of that Red Sox rivalry, David Bednar has pitched on back-to-back days and in 3 of the past 4, but so has Fernando Cruz. So not really sure who will be the go-to if a save arises, but it's going to be one of Tim Hill, Brent Hedrick, or Camilo Doval. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler, where I do daily SP streamers and break down every single start via the Pitcher List stats player cards. Tune into YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast, and make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.